Hi, everybody. It's Heather with the Brave Files and Vickery and Co. And I'm joined here by with Dr. Aaron Smith. Aaron, say hi.
Hi, everybody.
So Aaron is this week's guest on the Brave Files podcast. And we had our conversation several months ago, and it was a really good one. So y'all should listen. But then we were recently chatting, and education is at the same time, exactly the same and completely different now because of pandemic. And I wanted to bring you back, Aaron, to talk about, we talked a lot about equity in schools and how the community can really come together to make schools better and kids can take ownership, and your whole concept. You've written this book of giving the kids a blank check and how to build their education. And I wanted to talk with you about how that plays into what's happening now. To me, I think the equity divides have even gotten bigger. In a lot of ways. So I want to sort of hear your thoughts on it and what's been happening for you, and then we'll just chat.
So I agree with you. We're in an opportunistic time, but we're also in some uncharted waters. And I say that because as captains of our own ship, whether we're parents, whether we're school administrators, teachers, or community leaders, we have the opportunity to either close the gaps and really do some fascinating things, or ignore some signs of opportunity and continue to diverge in different directions.
Yeah.
And, I tell everybody, let's stop talking about the problems and just rally around each other and focus on the solutions.
Yeah.
The media is so negative at this point. And it's just whenever you turn it on, if you are looking for bad news, you're at the right place. You're
going to find it. I know.
You're going to find it. So you have to surround yourself with the right people, the people who not only believe in your ideologies and your beliefs, but those that are the doers, the ones that have the ability to become game changers.
Yeah.
And, that's what we need to do.
You said something, though, that I appreciate, and I've been working with, I'm a success and leadership coach, and I work with clients. What is that? Is that your dog?
My dog shaking, yeah.
I thought so. Hi, puppy. About that, there's a lot that sucks about all of this, like a lot, but not everything for everyone. I should say, I say this from a very privileged standpoint, and I fully recognize that my ability to work from home and provide for my family and to have a safe home and access to food and internet and all of that makes it much easier for me to say that there are things that are good, that are coming out well. And I work with entrepreneurs and corporations all the time. We're learning new ways to communicate with each other, new ways to communicate with clients. But people all across the globe are building entirely new infrastructures and businesses, and everything is shifting. And the same goes for education. So I know we were originally supposed to have this chat last night at 5:00, and you had to change because you had a back to school night. And I want to ask about that. When my kids had back to school night, my high schoolers had back to school night last night. I actually missed it, which is terrible parenting. I shouldn't admit that, but I had a meeting that I couldn't reschedule. It was completely virtual. It was a little bit of a cluster, not going to lie, because everything was in Google Meet or Zoom, and it was different for every class. And the kids were supposed to send the schedule, and, try asking your 15 and 16-year-old kids to send you 9 different links, right? But I get it from a school's perspective. The school couldn't have possibly reached out to every parent. There's 3,000 students in the school, So, but it also made it way more easy for some parents to attend than in person. If they didn't have to drive, if they couldn't get there, if they didn't have childcare for their other kids, right? So there are pros and cons to everything if we bother to look for the pros.
It is.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we have to do together, because I think at this point, even when COVID is over, we're kind of in a new era of learning. We're in a new place. And that's a good thing, because we can really invent and imagine some phenomenal things. But if we're not careful, we're going to make the digital divide even wider. And that's scary to me, because our kids struggle already with some of the basic reading comprehension, literacy skills, arithmetic. And if they don't have the opportunities, more so like the affluent, that's really just going to set them up for failure as a citizen, as an employee. And we have to monitor that and make that our number one focus.
So I really appreciate that you brought that up. We talked about that a lot in the interview that we released yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
So this has been an ongoing problem with children learners who did not have access. And we talked about hotspots and Sprint was providing, which is now T-Mobile, and Wi-Fi spots and things like that. How are you suggesting, and how is your school handling making sure all learners have access to remote classes? And your classes are remote, correct?
They are remote. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. So how are you suggesting that we make this situation as equitable as possible?
Number one, you've got to really have a structured communication process, and you have to make it easy for parents to understand, easy to get to. And you're going to have to make your schedule very fluid. Some kids are not going to be able to be at a class from 10 to 12 because they're watching their little brother and sister.
Yeah.
But the beauty of it is if that parent understands that they have to watch their brother and sister from 10 to 12, why can't they go online from 4 to 6? You've got to be flexible with this.
Yeah.
But, we also have to make sure that those that don't have the opportunity have the opportunity. That means making sure that kids have Chromebooks, they have iPads, they have whatever they need, hotspots. And you're going to have to do this in more than one day. Today was the second makeup day that we had given iBooks out or Chromebooks out. And it was like a line. I kid you not. You would have thought it was Black Friday because the line was wrapped all the way around the school. And everybody was waiting patiently in line, 6 feet apart, only 15 at a time, and just boom. But they were grateful. You could see the appreciative of us trying to connect with them and get them back on board. You've got to make sure little things like where can you get connected at? And if you will remind me, I will send you a link that shows you all the things such as where's the best place to get connected at.
Oh, that's great. We can put it in the comments for this live after we're finished. That's
perfect.
Great.
Perfect. I've got a JPEG of it, so I can send it to you. So it's got that and some other things. And, things like where can you get internet for relatively a free price because it's based on a economically tiered system. Mm-hmm. So we have to make sure parents have this information available and accessible to them.
Yeah. You said something that I've thought a lot about, and our high school, I think, is doing a really good job. So I'm not harshing on them, but the families where there are several remote learners at home and parents do not have the ability to stay home. And so older siblings are caring for younger family members. Our school is set up that you need to show up. Your ass has to be sitting in front of that Zoom meeting or the Google Meet on time. They've been very flexible with timing. There's a 30-minute passing period, all of these things. But I don't know what those families who require their older kids to take care of their younger kids are doing. It's a really big problem.
So let me make sure I understand right. They have to log in at a set time.
Yeah, they have. Okay. Their classes are live, which I appreciate. I want them to have live classes, but I also feel like there has to be a give and take. And to be fair, I haven't made the phone call to say my child needs to take care of my other child and cannot be there. So perhaps they would have a solution for that. But yeah, they have A days and B days, and 1 through 4th period on A days and 5 through 9th period on B days. And you have to be there, and you have to be there with your camera on and all of that. And that there's whole slew of issues there too. I mean, you've got sensitive kids who can't handle, they feel like they're being stared at and they have anxiety issues. Like, I don't know, man, how do you help all these kids?
You think of the masses, but you also have to plan individually.
Yeah.
when it
Yeah.
comes to situations like where they can't afford to be there every day, they should be recording these sessions, not only from an instructional perspective, but also a safety perspective. And these should be stored within their platform. We use Canvas, maybe Schoolology or Blackboard, whatever their configuration is. They need to be storing that because kids review notes. Why can't they have the opportunity to review a video if it's part of their quote unquote curriculum? So that's an important element that they need to consider. One of the other things you talked about was, it just eluded me. We talked about the time, and what was the other thing you said? Sorry, I had a brain fart.
I think it was just that the camera, being on camera.
Camera.
Yeah.
Yes. So that really has to help them build up confidence, but it's also a skill needed in the workforce. Soft skills, as you know, is one of the biggest things that demand. And here's an opportunity for them to gain confidence and skills through that. But if they have certain issues, like we actually have one kid who has an IEP that does not do distance learning, believe it or not. And it's their disability.
I know a lot of kids in that parents of kids on the spectrum and different situations where they just cannot do it.
Right. So they're kind of creating an audible and working on a different game plan for them. And that's where the schools have to be flexible. The parents have to be understanding also and knowing that they're definitely going to try their best to make sure they can give them the best thing possible. And it's just making sure people are communicating. Making sure they can log in on time if they have to be, or just making sure they can log in and get the work. Talk to the teacher. Teachers can sometimes be given flexibility, but they're not going to tell everybody, because if they tell everybody, you got to ask. And a lot of times teachers will work with parents, especially in situations like yours, that you're just not able to make sure that they have that designated time.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we work it out. We're a 2-household family. Our kids are pretty self-motivated. We've got 2 schools, and one school's remote. They're in person in the morning and remote in the afternoon. It's a lot of moving parts. I mean, I have been aware of my privilege for a really long time, but never more so than right now. The ability to pick my kids up in the middle of the day and bring them back, or their other parents' ability to pick them up and bring them back and give them lunch and set them up for remote learning and go back to work and have patient and understanding clients and bosses and coworkers. And holy cow, it's a lot.
It is. And that's what I was talking about, the new norm, because more companies were already going to distance learning, e-commuting than before. So not only is it advantageous for the employee, it also shows that they're more productive because they're not focusing on that. Or if they've got a sick child, they can still attend Zoom meetings in between the child taking a nap. So
I actually agree. I think this is a particularly challenging situation from an educational standpoint, but from a business standpoint and a corporate standpoint, I've long been an advocate for more work from home, less work in the office. And I definitely think that's going to shift in a way that's never going to go back. I think people will, because there were so many companies who just didn't believe you could do a good job if you were working from home. And now they know that you can. So from a corporate and business position, I actually think this is going to be great. I think education is a totally different ballgame because there's so many other factors at play. You do a lot of, or prior to this, hopefully you're still finding ways to do a lot of public speaking and supporting. What efforts are you able to make to keep, I mean, you work at one specific school and you do wonderful things there, but to support people in other school districts and other towns and other states on how to do this as equitably as possible and involving the kids. Yeah. Where are you with that?
So if you go to my blog site, aaronsmithphd.com/blog, you'll see basically since March, I've reshifted my focus and my energy towards distance learning, best practices in distance learning, parent checklists, teacher checklists, so that there is a little bit of understanding that you're not alone fighting this battle. We all are focused on wanting our kids to be better, but sometimes an outsider looking in with a different lens can help unlock that. So it's conversations like we're having right now, already giving me ideas for a future blog. It's previous conversations that you've had written up, and then boom, this is the perfect time to pull it out.
Yeah.
And it's just you have to think as a child. You have to think, are they going to want to look at a Zoom meeting for 90 minutes? They are going to be bored out of their tears.
Yeah.
And you can't do it. Don't expect to do it. You need to what we call chunking. I would recommend 15 minutes, do a structured activity, another 15 minutes, and then you go offline for 20, 25 minutes, and you make everybody check back in to turn in the work before the day is over,
Yeah, I like that a lot. I was chatting with a parent last night so like I said, the high school, they do 4 periods at a time per day, and there's 30 minutes in between. And this parent was like, they have 5 minutes to get from one end of this giant school to the other in person. Why do they need 30 minutes now? And I think that's what you just said is why those kids cannot be connected for 4, 5, 6 hours a day. They just can't be.
No.
There's no way. No one can. I mean, some of us do it for work, but the total zone, total zone out. I really appreciate, the ability. So your blog, is it just for educators, or is it a great resource for caregivers, guardians, and parents to go to maybe ask better questions and advocate for their kids? Yeah.
I try to make it for everybody. Like I may have a particular week where I'm focused on teachers or I'm focused on parents, but if you read it, you still may be able to pick up a really cool idea as an entrepreneur, And,
yeah, I love that.
And that's my way of saying it's time to change the way we view education. It's time to change the way we teach and learn. If we keep doing the same things, we're going to get the same results, and the divide's going to become worse. Again, here's the perfect time. There's no more snow days. We joke about it internally because that was the nostalgia of it.
I know.
Now kids are stuck with it. And that's a good thing, because maybe that's a few less days that they won't miss out in the summer. Or more importantly, they won't forget that skill that they started learning and then they just had to drop it off because of the bad weather.
Fascinating. Oh, yeah, man, that hasn't occurred to my kids yet. No more snow days. It's going to be a bummer. But there is, I don't know about where you are, but here in Illinois, the governor allowed the schools to put in a lot more remote learning planning days. So like we had a 4-day weekend this weekend. The kids didn't have school today, and they don't have school Monday because it's Labor Day. So there are a lot more of those built in. I think, though, I'm sure that the schools and the teachers are using it for planning, but I also think everybody just needs a break. There's so much on, and I can't imagine from the educator standpoint, the learning curve. I can't imagine being a teacher with kids who are home remote learning. How is anybody doing that?
Well, we're a few of those that are doing it. So what we're doing is we're juggling.
Yeah, big time.
Back in March, my wife would be teaching a lesson and I would be upstairs Zooming, or I would be sitting right here side by side with my 11-year-old going over math. It just depends. And then we would tag team. And that's how we survived.
And thank goodness there were 2 of you.
Right.
What if there weren't? I mean, I just think expectations are outrageous right now from an education standpoint.
It is. It is. And I think it's because nobody's developed that routine yet. And that's what normal teachers are used to, is that typical routine. When you enter the classroom, boom, you know what to expect, when to expect, how to expect. Here, you got newness. Teachers are having to redefine, re-implement, relaunch their lessons. And what I learned the other day, check this out. It takes about 15 hours to develop a 1-hour lesson plan from a subject matter expert.
I believe that. That's crazy, but I believe it.
And it's sad because they don't have the time already to do what they were trying to do before school started pre-COVID.
No. And then I think age-wise, it's so vastly different. It's one thing. I mean, clearly there have been online colleges for years, and
Mhm.
that's fine. So I feel like from a high school standpoint, okay, not always great, but okay. But I have a good friend who teaches preschool in the
Yeah.
Chicago public school system. And the preschoolers, these are 3 and 4-year-olds, are expected to sit in front of a Zoom meeting
Yeah.
for 6 hours a day. But they
That's
are.
not gonna work. I don't see how. I just don't see how. I mean, unless they're looking at Elmo or they're looking at Sesame Street, you got to have entertainment at that level, and you're just not going to absorb it. You've got to be active
Way.
learners.
Yeah, and then so much about early childhood education is play based and socially, and
It is.
oof, man, it's gonna be wild in 20 years, 30 years to see the kind of adults that will be produced from this. Now that sounds drastic because we all think this is going to just go away, and I don't think it is just going to go away. And there's going to be long term effects from this. These little kids who are formalizing who they are and how they learn right now, their shift out of something like this is going to be drastic. Like, oh, there's so much.
There is. Frederick Douglass said it best: "It's easier to train a child, to educate a child, than it is to fix an adult."
So
And
we could use that quote in the interview I did with you. I just re-listened to it. We
oh,
talked
that's
about
right.
it.
That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right.
It's true.
But it is. It really is. And what I'm learning myself is, and this is before your time because you're 21, but when I first started teaching, okay, 22, I lied. Um, I don't lie on Tuesdays,
Flatterer.
okay?
You're a flatterer.
I try. But all kidding aside, I joked around on Facebook the other day. I said it was a great tech day when you saw the roller come in with the TV on it. You knew it was just going to be a great lesson that day. And think about it. How much did you get done on that day? Big fat zero.
Not a thing.
And nothing. It was because they weren't engaged. And this is an example of distance learning at its finest. The phone is ringing from a spammer.
I'm sitting here thinking, oh, Aaron still has a landline. Like I literally don't know anybody who still has a landline.
We do, and it's because of our youngest. She's in 6th grade. She does not have her own phone, but let's just say she has to come home. It's an emergency. She needs to call.
Yeah.
So this is why she has it.
Yeah.
I love it. She says, "I don't know nobody by that name," and then click.
I don't know anybody by that name. Click. Yeah, I know. They're like, nope. I love it.
No.
Kids are
But
smart. I mean, they're resilient. That's for sure.
They are. But getting back to what I was, I guess, going to, corporate America, just as much as the world, really starting to strive on autonomous learning. But what they're not understanding is you have to tap into the individual's learning styles. You're not going to get the most or the untapped potential out of an employee unless you cater your lessons, your trainings, your developments to their preferred learning styles.
Yeah.
It's the same way with education. If we want kids to be motivated and get ready for school and be excited, you've got to make sure you tap into their learning style. And that's something the teachers are going to have to figure out very quickly once they understand how the basics of distance learning works.
Yeah. I really think that's so true. And I do a lot of speaking and training in corporations and leadership, talking specifically about the fact that business as usual is not business as usual. And it's no longer going to work. And this was before COVID too, but it's no longer going to work to say, do it this way because I'm telling you to do it this way. You're not going to get effective people working with you and for you when you do that. It's not going to happen. And so to say this is the end result that I need, I'm not terribly concerned about how you get to the end results. One of my favorite stories, and so anybody who's coached with me or heard me speak has probably heard me tell this story multiple times, but I love it and I think you will appreciate it. My now 5th grader, she's 1 week into 5th grade, when she started 3rd grade. So in case Miss Angela's watching. Hi, Miss Angela. First day of school. So it's a progressive education school. It's called the Children's School, project-based learning. And the kids, 12 kids in the class, the kids sit down and they do a math problem of the day. So they each have to create a math problem, and the answer is the day of the month. Okay. 12 kids. Afterwards, they all share their problem and their strategy for getting to the same number. All of them had different equations. Every one of them solved it differently. None of them, I don't know what day it was, but let's just say it was the 7th. And none of them did your basic, 6 + 1 = 7. None of them did that. And so the teacher said to the class, gosh, that's so fascinating. What did you learn from this? And the kid said that there are a lot of ways to solve a problem. I tell adults that all the time because everyone just thinks they have to know how to do it. Like, no, you don't have to know how to do it. You figure out how to do it. Do it any way you want to do it.
Right. And that's the beauty of it, is if you have some skills, it's like putting a puzzle together. Through those skills, you'll see the connection, and then you'll have a part of the puzzle put together. You'll get another piece, and eventually it'll all be right there in front of you before you know it.
Yeah.
Brilliant story. I love it.
Yeah. It's funny that you use the puzzle analogy. I used it in my Intentionally Brave Entrepreneurs program earlier today. We were just talking about figuring out what you want and how to put it all together. And I said, I have a kid who loves puzzles, my littlest, and I'm not great at puzzles. So I have to attack a puzzle by the edges. I got to go and separate. We look for the edges, and then I find the corners, and I put the corners in, and then I do the edges, and then we fill in the middle. And what I love about that analogy is, what do you know? Figure out what you do know. Okay. And then figure out where you want to go. Where you want to go. What do you know? All right. Now what's in the middle? Then we can figure out what goes in the middle. That's
right. And that's another important topic about education, is understanding what we don't know. And I think there's a question that comes along with it. You don't know what you don't know. How can you fill that gap?
Yeah.
You can't. That's where you have to surround yourself with smart people who have the ability. And no, I'm serious. So that you're not the smartest person in the room, but yet you are the sponge just soaking it all in. And from there, that's when you kind of get up to that level, and you can just rip it right back at them, just like they're throwing it at you.
Yep, I love it. I had the privilege of being at an event where Barack Obama was the keynote speaker in 2019, and they asked him what the best thing he did as the president was, and his answer was, I hired the right people to do the right jobs because I can't know it all. I'm not supposed to know it all. And then I let them do their jobs. Like, he's like, I never want to be the smartest in the room. I want to be surrounded by people that know way more than I do about all the things I don't know anything about.
Right. And that's a great and profound statement, because it shows leadership. It shows the ability to trust people. And at the same time, you're getting a little slice of their knowledge just from what took them 20, 30, 40 years. You may have just picked it up in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of it.
It is. And that is the kind of leader I want to be. It's the kind of leader I want my kids to be. I want their schools to be, because there's so much goodness there. Well, if you have any tips for folks who are supporting remote learners to make this a little bit more manageable for themselves and the kiddos?
I do. And like I said, I'm going to send you a couple of JPEGs with it. They come with links and stuff. One thing is, make sure that you have good connectivity. And believe it or not, depending on where you live, you may notice a spike or a huge sharp decrease at the time of day. Like our cul-de-sac here, we all have FiOS. And during COVID, it was just as good as clockwork. At 2 o'clock, boom, everything went down to a trickle. And it's because everybody's on the network. So you have to look at little patterns like this, call your internet service provider and say, hey, look, this is what's going on, and have that access. You also may want to think about some of those skills, like knowing what your router password is, contacting or maybe getting your computer fine-tuned,
Yeah.
clearing your cache, your web history, because all that slows down and it buffers.
Mhm.
And things like that over time will eventually frustrate people and then eventually give up.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. That's great. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to jump back in a conversation with me. I don't know if you've had a chance to re-listen to the interview, but I think it was really fun. I enjoyed it.
I did. I did. I was just smiling all this morning re-listening to it. I was like, yep, this is probably one of my best ones.
Oh, well,
So
thank you.
no,
Share it,
no,
share
thank
it with
you.
everybody. Share it,
I
share it, share
am. I am, and I will continue, definitely.
because all of it was still super relevant, even pre-pandemic. The all of everything we talked about is still so profound. Um, one thing that I noticed is that your actual paper copy of your book is due out. Is it due out this month?
It's due out Tuesday, our first day of school.
That's awesome. So y'all, it's called Blank Check. Tell everybody about the book and how they can get it.
Okay, so Blank Check is a fictional story about a principal who's just burnt out and a troubled teen who overcomes things like opioid pressures that we could very easily see in anybody. And they team together through a blank check to win over the community and show them what education can be like and how important it is. And that's the message that I wanted to bring to every community across the world. What you have in your hands is responsibility and opportunity. And you have to merge them together by holding hands with one another and saying, let's solve this problem. When you fix the schools and you repair relationships, that's when you improve a community. That's when wages go up, crime goes down, trust gets restructured. And that's the purpose of this book. And that's my prayer, is that hopefully people will take away something that's meaningful to them and yet something that they can utilize down the road. It's available all the bookstores across the world, and the paperback you can pre-order now, but it will be ready to ship out on September the 8th, next Tuesday.
Oh, that is awesome. Congratulations to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's really exciting. We work so hard to get those books out, don't we?
It's like a little child of us because we see the process. I mean, it's like a year, 9 months. I kind of understand what 9 months is like, just from the start to the finish, but it's a slice of heaven when it's done.
It is. Well, you should be so proud, and I'm so excited for you. So
Thank you. Thank you.
all right, Aaron. Well, be sure to stay in touch with us and let us know how things are going. Thank you for checking back in, and I hope they have a wonderful holiday weekend.
Thanks. You too. Please stay in touch.
Will do. Take care, Aaron.
Bye bye.
Bye.